Hi, I'm Kathleen Maloney. I'm from William Raveis here in Cheshire, and I'm joined today by an insurance expert called Michael.Alvord. Mike works here in our office. Yeah. What's your official title, Mike?
Insurance Sales Director.
Insurance
with
Sales.
William Raveis. Yep.
Excellent. So what we're going to do today is go through some questions that we get all the time and hopefully be of some use for you. We're going to talk about items that impact your insurance rates, issues that you may come across. We're going to talk about trampolines maybe, dogs, teenage drivers, dogs on trampolines, trees, all kinds of things. So first question, Mike, is what is the most common question that you get asked?
So a very common question that we see a lot when in going into the insurance process is the replacement cost versus the purchase price.
Okay.
I could totally see how people get confused on this. If you're purchasing the house for a certain number, you would think that you would be insuring it for that same number.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's not the reality. Replacement cost is a different number. So when looking at replacement cost, we use a computer-generated system that each insurance provider has in their system. We look at the materials used to build the home, all the way from the foundation to the roof. And you'll notice that there's other fees that are included in this, including architectural fees, debris removal, and cleanup. A common example that I like to use is, say someone purchases a home on the water. People like to live on the water. It's a luxury that you pay extra for. We can't insure, the sand or the beach or the view of the water. We have to strictly look at the structure of the home.
Okay.
What will it cost to rebuild the home in the event of a total loss? God forbid it never happens, but this is why we have insurance and this is why we're here. It does happen.
Does the replacement cost typically, is it more than the cost of the home itself? What is the...
Well, it depends. So going back to the example, if you're purchasing a home on the water, say for $500,000, you're paying extra again for that view. But when looking at the actual home and the replacement value, it may be, half of that price.
Okay,
because it's only strictly the building.
Right.
So that's where we see a lot of confusion.
Okay. Now, if it was an older home that you were replacing, so you bought a property, let's say here in Cheshire, an older, more modest home would be about $250,000. But you're rebuilding it, that may be more expensive. So it's a case by case.
That's exactly it. So every home is different. Every insurance carrier has a different system that they calculate. Okay. The system is actually smart enough to pick up the going labor of rates in the area.
Rates.
Yes.
Okay.
So
excellent.
With older homes, we tend to see higher replacement values because the owners may rebuild the interior with plaster. If they choose to do drywall, you'll see the replacement cost drop dramatically.
Okay, interesting. So every single one is different. Different
Correct.
By age, different by location, different by area, based on the labor cost. Okay, that's good stuff.
There's a lot of different variables involved. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, so you touched upon properties that are built on the shore, for example.
Yes.
Also, properties that are built beside lakes, beside rivers, we see flood insurance.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about flood insurance? People
Yes.
are frightened by that sometimes.
Yes, they are. So flood insurance is a second policy that you'd have to purchase. You'll see if someone's purchasing a home using a lender, the lender will look up the flood zone of the property and they'll see if it's in a high-risk flood zone. If it is, they'll most likely require the borrower to purchase an insurance policy on top and provide proof of this policy. Usually it's 10 days prior to the closing date. Okay. Every home in Connecticut, or actually in the United States, is technically in a flood zone. They break it down by risk. So there's different zones. For example, a VE zone is very high, which would most likely require a flood insurance policy. A flood zone X is on the complete opposite end of the scale. It's a low risk and a flood insurance policy is not required. Now, if your home is in a flood zone that's not required to carry a flood policy, you can certainly purchase a policy.
Just to be safe?
To be safe, yes. Okay. There are many different vendors for flood. You can go through the government, and you can go obviously through FEMA, and there's private market for flood insurance as well. You do have to be careful because depending on the loan program the borrowers are using, the flood insurance provider is not always accepted.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Okay.
That's typically with FHA loans. But
so what you would do then would be to coordinate with the purchaser and with their loan company.
Correct.
Just to make sure you're all on the proper page.
So what I do typically when I have a client purchasing a home in a flood zone, I'll provide two quotes, one with the private flood market and then one with FEMA. That way, if the they're going through maybe FHA, they may not accept the private flood market. So at least they'll have both options to choose from, and they'll send both policies to the underwriter from the lender, and they'll let you know if that policy is acceptable or not. We can also look at different deductible amounts. At that stage, that's where you want to talk with your lender, see what makes most sense for you. Most carriers will let you go up to a $10,000 deductible, all the way down to $5,000 if you'd like.
Okay, good stuff. Another thing that comes up here a lot in Connecticut, because we're such a wooded area, are trees. We're all fascinated by trees. Here in this area. We're sitting actually in a house in Cheshire. Cheshire, particularly Hamden, Bethany, all got impacted by the tornado last year.
Yes, that's true.
They were obsessed with trees. Tell us about it.
So trees are a big topic with insurance carriers. Whenever we issue, or a company issues a new policy, they'll most likely send an inspector out there to review the home, to check for many different variables, one being trees, overhanging branches. What they look for is it in direct contact with the structure itself, or any detached structures like a garage or a shed. If they are, the insurance company may require you to either A, completely remove the trees or the branches, or chop them back enough where they're not physically touching the house or the other structures.
Yeah.
Another common question that we see a lot is, I have a tree on my property that's overhanging, say my neighbor's house or the shed or garage, anything on their side of the property. Now, the question we get is, if my tree falls down and hits their whose insurance policy covers it?
Right.
That's actually, even though it's your tree, it would be their policy.
Okay.
So if they don't have insurance, they will not have coverage, and vice versa. If your neighbor's tree happens to fall onto your car or your house, your policy would have to pay for it. And
sometimes if it falls on the car, it's car insurance generally?
Correct. Yep. Unless you will need to have comprehensive coverage on your policy to cover fallen trees and hail damage and flood.
Okay.
Items like that.
Yeah, and this became a huge topic for us after
it became
the
a
tornado.
very big topic. Yeah. As you can imagine, with the tornado coming through. Yes, we had a couple trees fall down and cause some damage, but we could. That's what insurance is there for.
Yeah,
but it's important to understand in the time of an emergency like that, how to react to it properly.
Okay, great. So when, obviously my job as a realtor is helping people purchase and sell property. But when they're purchasing the property, obviously they're insuring the house. They're often talking about their cars. They're often talking about their kids and dogs. Yep. So all those come with them when they purchase the property. So there are certain things that can impact the prices of their insurance. Can you talk a little bit about that, or things that could help them?
I can.
Yes. To bring the cost down.
One of the most common issues that we run into are with dogs. Yeah. Specifically certain breeds. So most insurance companies will have a certain list of dog breeds that are ineligible,
but not all companies.
Coverage. Correct.
Yeah.
Not every company has this, so you'll definitely want to check the rules and the guidelines of your carrier. If you're looking to purchase a new family member as the dog, or you adopt one, or definitely let your insurance provider know. You don't want to see any rejection claims in the mail because they didn't know the dog was residing there.
Okay.
I'm going to list a few dog breeds that are on there. I don't necessarily agree with them. I'm just saying what the guidelines are. But typically we'll see pit bulls, Rottweilers, German Shepherds, Bull Mastiffs, dogs that unfortunately have a bad reputation. Yes.
Yeah. Which can be a shame, because some of them can be incredibly gentle, but insurance is insurance.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Very good. Another question I get a lot is, if somebody's buying a second home, or if perhaps they're getting a job that takes them out of state, can they rent out their house? Should they let the insurance company know?
Yes.
What's the impact?
So that is another question that we do come across a lot, especially in living in the Northeast. We have a lot of snowbirds that tend to go down south to avoid the snow. Yeah. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll just rent the home out without advising the insurance company, which is not a good thing, because the company is under the impression that you're occupying this home as your primary residence, not for investment. If you decide to rent it out, always let your insurance company know. You may be able to purchase coverage for it, or look at an additional policy to help offer landlord coverage to cover yourself in the event, say the tenant causes a fire. You definitely want to make sure that, you're going to get covered for that.
Okay, good. That's good to know. Things that impact me directly. I have teenage drivers. What can be done, aside from taking the keys off them and not allowing them to drive, to bring down the premiums there?
So there are a lot of discounts for students and young drivers. A more popular one is the driver prevention course, where they could, learn skills and how to handle certain situations on the road. Most insurance carriers will provide a discount for that. We will need to provide proof of certificate upon completion to apply for it. Another discount is for students who may have a grade average A or better.
Okay.
We'll have to supply a copy of the report card or something showing the grades that they have to the insurance provider, and they'll be able to pop on the discount.
Okay, good.
Additionally, if you have a child that is away at school, your rule of thumb is typically more than 100 miles away with a vehicle, you could apply for some sort of discount. Even if they don't have a vehicle there as well, you may be looking at a larger one.
Okay. Something too that people are confused about are umbrella policies, or an umbrella. What is that?
So umbrella policy, also known as excess liability. Every homeowner's, or renter's, or condo policy that you purchase should come with a liability amount to set for yourself in the event you're sued. What the umbrella does is it gives you excess liability. So if you're sued for larger than what your policy covers, the umbrella will kind of step in and pick up the extra that's left off. Okay. And an umbrella or excess liability will cover both your home and your auto as well, and any investment properties that you have. So if you have a current umbrella policy and you pick up, another investment property, let your company know to add it so you have coverage onto that.
Okay, great. So probably a good idea to have one.
Absolutely. I always recommend it, especially for people with young drivers that may not be so experienced. If they are traveling to and back from school, you'll definitely want to make sure that in the event you are sued, you want to have ample coverage.
Good. Okay, I think those are the main questions that we wanted to cover today. I do want to thank you.
Oh, no, thanks for having me.
No problem. If you have any questions that we mightn't have covered here today, please do feel free to ask them either on our Facebook, it'll be on Instagram, it'll be on my website, or call Mike directly. What's your phone number, Mike?
So my phone number is 203-228-8693. That is my personal cell phone, so you can text that as well. I'd be happy to go into more depth or detail of anything we have discussed. If I did not answer any questions clearly, I'd be happy to sit down in person or on the phone to go over anything left over. And
I do want to point out that Mike is licensed in the state of Connecticut. So anything that we're discussing today is Connecticut related.
Yes, we do. Our agency, Raveis, is partnered with many different states, so we do have the ability to insure outside of Connecticut. So we definitely have that option available as well.
So if they have, let's say they have a property in Florida, we do have connections that we can that we can help you with.
That's correct.
Perfect. If you have any questions for me, my number is 203-213-9198. And again, I'm with William Raveis here in Cheshire. Thank you so much for listening.